Hi everybody, this is Agnes from Sediment, and today let's discover and taste the real gem of Rioja, its white wines. Rioja is a winemaking region that many associate with red wines, with star grape variety being Tempranillo. We often hear about debates between those who prefer wines made from 100% Tempranillo and those who favor the traditional style with grape varieties blended, as well as the sad stories about Tempranillo taking over the vineyards of Rioja. We learn about the aging requirements for Crianza, Reserva, Gran Reserva, always with red wine in mind. And we read about the introduction of single vineyard wines and the role these viñedo singular hold for Rioja in the future. Yet there is almost no mention of super exciting and highly versatile in style Rioja Blanco. So today I invite you all to forget the idea of Rioja as just a red wine region and open the horizon and discover the absolutely charming white wines of Rioja. According to wine experts, Rioja used to have way more land under white grape varieties than it does today. Not that long ago, some even thought this style was on the brink of extinction, with less than 7% of Rioja vineyards planted with white grapes. Which is why it does not come as a huge surprise that Rioja is not widely recognized for its white wines. However, in the last few years, this trend has started to shift, with an increase in white grape plantings, possibly indicating a shift in consumer preference towards white wines. You might be surprised to discover that there are actually 9 different white grape varieties allowed in Rioja. This is quite interesting considering the region is so heavily dominated by reds. I will not go into detail about some of the unique yet exceedingly rare grape varieties such as ancient Maturana Blanca and Torontes, which by the way is not related to Argentinian Torontes, as together these two make less than 0.1% of the total Rioja plantings. But alongside the international grape varieties such as Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc, there are some truly exciting white grape varieties to discover. The most important of these is Viura, also known as Macabeo, which is perhaps best recognized as one of the key grapes in cava production. Viura accounts for just over 6% of the total plantings, but is a master at retaining acidity and offering charming white floral aromatics along with notes of preserved orange and clementine. The only other white grape variety with more than 1% of total plantings is Tempranillo Blanco, a relative newcomer which was only discovered in 1988, a natural color mutation of Tempranillo. Other white grape varieties in Rioja include Garnacha Blanca, Verdejo and Malvasia, each of which constitute less than 1% of the total vineyard area. However, with Verdejo's success in Rueda and Garnacha Blanca and Malvasia playing a role as a blending partners, hopefully these grapes will increase in plantings in future. Apparently, the reason why white wines of Rioja fell out of fashion was due to their oxidative style. However, we should know now that Rioja Blanco has so much more to offer. Yes, indeed, some of the most famous and, funny enough, most sought-after white wines from Rioja today are those with long cellar aging, like Vina Tondonia Gran Reserva from Lopez de Heredia or Castillo y Gay from Marqués de Murrieta. These wines are labeled similarly as their red brothers with Crianza, Reserva and Gran Reserva, and yet oftentimes aged way longer than the minimum requirement. They offer complex notes of dried white flowers, orange blossom, white apricots and hints of fresh yet skinned almonds. Not only are these wines released with significant age, but they can also be left in the cellars to continue their development. I have been constantly amazed by their complexity and freshness despite their impressive age. However, these wines are becoming increasingly difficult to find, and despite them being released by the wineries at reasonable prices, market demand has driven prices up. Rioja Blanco can also be made in fresh, yet still beautifully structured style. They are produced using more modern winemaking with shorter aging in oak barrels or even no oak aging at all. Despite this, they still offer great aging potential and lively acidity, though they are more restrained when released in their youth. While these two distinct styles are usually found at premium and ultra-premium prices ranging from $20 to $1,000 per bottle, do not fear. Rioja Blanco also offers aromatic and crisp white wines with immediate appeal, often available for just under $10. These wines are driven by rounded yellow and white fruits, juicy yet balanced acidity, and no oak influence. And because Rioja Blanco offers such a wide range of styles, from complex and oxidative to highly structured and age-worthy to fresh fruit-driven for immediate consumption, I will not be doing blind tasting today. Instead, I have purposefully selected wines that represent these distinct styles. So let's taste what surprises this tiny part of Rioja offers us in the glasses. So wine number 1. I will be tasting from the youngest to the oldest, so this is 2022 and it should be in my books the lightest and the most fruit-driven of all three wines. It is produced by Ondarre, which is a cooperative in Rioja and relatively known for its red wines, so let's taste whether or not it lives up to the quality with their white wines. And interestingly, this is 100% Tempranillo Blanco, the mutation of Tempranillo grape variety. You would expect the youngest one to be lightest in the color, but actually this one is deeper than the second one. On the nose, it is driven by these really ripe yellow fruits, yellow plums, peaches, apricots. And at first, when I smelled it, I felt maybe some hints of oak, maybe some toastiness. I did quickly check the technical page of this wine, and it did say it has been aged on the lees for 4 months in French, American, and acacia wood. So maybe slight hint of oak actually could be here. Style-wise, this is not the lightest or zestiest wine. It actually comes from pretty sunny and dry climate, so it makes sense for it to be a bit riper and rounder and slightly more opulent, which this wine is. Acidity here is towards the lower side, maybe medium if we want to describe wine according to WSET standards. However, it is still very fresh and it has that distinct phenolic grip at the end, which could contribute to some of the freshness in the wine. I don't necessarily think that this wine is meant for aging. This is 2022 vintage, maximum another year for it. And I will just take the bottle for you to see how the label looks. So you will see that this is 2022. However, it is drinking quite nicely now. Maybe it would be even nicer if it was half a year or year younger. So I will give this wine 89 points. Okay, so wine number 2, and this one comes from Remelluri producer. Rioja Blanco, 2019 vintage, and as mentioned before, it actually looks much lighter in the color. It even has some green notes still, and according to legend, the winemaker Telmo Rodriguez was not allowed to experiment with red grapes and red wines because it was too much of a risk, so he was allowed to experiment with white grape varieties, and this is exactly what he did. And now this wine, Remelluri Blanco, is highly allocated and really sought after. It has been fermented in oak and aged in oak, but not as long as the examples from Lopez de Heredia. And on the nose, it does have that lively, fresh, zesty, aromatic grip. I have here orange peel, I have freshly squeezed lime juice, I have white florals and crushed peaches, and even some salinity. However, we do not have here that oxidized character that I would expect from the examples of Lopez de Heredia. So this is much fresher, livelier style in general, but enough talking, let me taste it. This is not my first time with Remelluri Blanco, but I think it is my first time with 2019 vintage. And here I think the acidity has calmed down, it has rounded, because if I remember correctly, my previous tastings, they were usually driven by much higher mouth-watering acidity. And here, either the age or maybe the vintage has just mellowed or rounded the acidity here, really beautifully integrated within the body of the wine. It is definitely much more inviting and much more open than I remember some of other wines I've tasted from them. It beautifully stays on the palate, and it is that mid palate that kind of is much longer lasting and adds this beautiful structure, and it is all wrapped with really lovely fruit, and that fruit is ripe, it is inviting, it is succulent, it is absolutely lovely wine and beautifully balanced. So I will also take the bottle. So this is how it looks, 2019 vintage, and I mean, I will give this wine 95 points. I think it is stunning, fresh and zesty, and offers good cellaring potential. I forgot to mention that Remelluri, they claim, I'm not sure, I haven't checked that, they say that Remelluri Blanco is made from all 9 allowed white grape varieties, and that is a field blend. So the next wine, wine number 3, will be complete opposite, because it is made from 100% Viura, from their vineyard, Vina Gravonia. And what I didn't mention but wanted to tell you is that people keep calling these wines Vina Tondonia, when actually Vina Tondonia is a single vineyard they have, and the winery is Lopez de Heredia. But I mean, when we say Vina Tondonia, most of us know exactly what we mean, not necessarily a label, but winemaker or winery. So the third wine comes from Lopez de Heredia from Vina Gravonia vineyard, and it is 2015 vintage, aged for a whole 4 years in the barrels and later in the bottles. So you immediately see it is much deeper in the color. It has that kind of yellow straw tone, and it has a very distinct aroma of toasted nuts, dried oranges, hints of cantaloupe melon, like really ripe cantaloupe melon, and white florals, orange blossom. It is so complex. Let's taste it. Here, the acidity just shines, it sings, it is so bright and lovely. And this is something that I always remember about Lopez de Heredia wines. They have this magic in their hands, and their wines are never flabby, never tired. They have this absolutely amazing, long-lasting acidity, and all the wine is just wrapped around it. It just is forever long. It is these preserved lemons, salted lemons, fermented lemon peel, you know, on the palate, and filled with notes of yellow, sour plum, lychees. It is amazingly long and really complex wine. Lovely wine. And as promised, I also want to show you this iconic label. So this is Lopez de Heredia 2015 vintage Vina Gravonia. The only issue with this wine for me, which is why I'm always very, very cautious when I buy it, is the colorless bottle. I mean, it is very, very sensitive towards the light damage. If you find this rare bottle sitting in the shelf somewhere next to the window, and it is the last bottle, I am afraid I would not advise you to buy it. But I'm happy, this wine is perfect. And I will give it 97 points. I mean, I knew it when I started to put this video together. I knew that Rioja is offering such a wide range of white wine styles, but now tasting these 3, it really just underlined it. Because wine number 1 was really ripe fruit driven, wine number 2 was a bit tighter, more structured and fresh, and wine number 2 was just open and inviting with these hints of toastiness and oxidative flavors. It's just so exciting to be in Rioja and taste these Great wines. Please, the next time you have opportunity, do taste these wines, do explore them, and I promise you, you might not fall in love with every style, but you will definitely find one that suits your palate. I see similarities between Rioja and Bordeaux because they both are famously known for their red wines. However, they both have amazing white wines. So if you like this video, make sure to watch next video about Bordeaux whites.